Hello and welcome to another D&D Stories. I am your host, TheWriter. This is the show where I sit here and regale you with all the remember the time wins something cool happened playing tabletop games. So we return once more to the Ouroboros contract campaign. And as you recall, we struggled our way in all different manners through the Wanti fortress at the base of the volcano, found the door to Purgatory, and went straight in. So, we join our heroes crossing the gateway into another dimension. According to different religions, the place where people who were not bad enough to go to hell but not good enough to go to heaven reside. Now, we step through this doorway. We take the obsidian key with us, obviously, because we need it for wherever this lock is. And we step through, like, the Stargate, or whatever you want to call it. And, again, it's the fighter, the rogue, the monk, and the assassin. I'm missing a hand at this point, and I've got, like, it's sewn up, and I've got, like, a little nub cap, but I'm still in a lot of pain. So we pull, like, 3 or 4 potions and just kind of throw it on the open wound and then screw the cap back on. It's like, this is the way you're going to be for a while. So no dual wielding for you. You're going to have to learn to tie your shoes in a different way. This is misery, but you're out of pain at this point. Because I don't think potions in most settings can repair broken bones or like catastrophic damage like this. Like, I'm not going to regrow a new hand anytime soon. But at least I'm not in agony, just mentally, because I've got the phantom itches now. But we step through, and we find ourselves in an endless expanse. There's about an inch or two of water up around our boots, and it's just gray every which way. The sky is relatively gray. There's no like rolling thunderheads or anything, but you can't really see the sun. There's an occasional like gnarled tree and or a standing ruin of like a mausoleum or something small like that. We peek into a few of them. They're just empty shells of buildings, and it looks like there's nothing. And it's like, well, we could go in any direction and it wouldn't matter, but we see a mountain range off to one side, and we go, well, that's our only landmark. And as we're approaching, traveling on foot, basically like going through, like I said, an inch and a half of muck water. It's like walking through a swamp. But the mausoleums and like little shell buildings just kind of dot the landscape. Again, there's an occasional tree. We hear a loon now and then, even though loons that didn't make any sense, but whatever. We come up closer to these mountains, and we see that there is a city carved into the side of the mountain range. It's like Minas Tirith, but instead of having the endless rolling fields of green, we've got just a flat expanse of water that you can trudge through if you want to. We go, all right, city, let's go for it. It's all gray stone. There's not a lot of color, not a lot of activity going on. This could have been farmland at one point, but we're in Purgatory, so I guess eating really doesn't matter. And we come up to the gates. The gates are wide open, and there are people all through the streets. They're like, wow, this is Purgatory. It doesn't seem that different from real life. And somebody stops us right on the threshold and said, greetings, friends. Did you just die? Welcome to the city of Purgatory. And we go, Purgatory's a city? And he goes, hey, I have the ledger here. What are your names? How did you die? And, we have to keep a good registry so we know who's doing what and where. It's still a city, after all. And we look at each other and we're like, we probably shouldn't tell him that we didn't die. I am so-and-so the rogue, and I died of, and I hold up my stump arm. It's like, I died of catastrophic bleeding. I went into shock and died. And they tried to screw a nub cap on me, but they were just too late. And our fighter, he looks over at our fighter, and our fighter's like, I fell in battle against the Wanti in such and such fort at the base of the volcano. And he looks over at the two at the two women, and the monk and the assassin both go, we were comfort women for the Yuan Ti in the same fort, and we were treated a bit too roughly, and our bodies just gave out. And he's like, oh, you poor girls, you poor people. But hey, you didn't go to hell, so it's not as bad as it could be. I mean, hey, clearly you weren't good enough to go to heaven, but who really is good enough to go to heaven these days? Am I right? Am I right? You know, he's not the worst guy you ever did meet, you know, coming into the gates of purgatory. But he's like, well, you know, there's plenty of housing. There's reincarnation. People can get reborn, so the city is never quite packed. If you want to visit, you know, different sets of purgatory, each mountain has a city. This is ours, you know, we're city number blah de blah, and he names off like a serial number because there's a lot of people in purgatory. This is city like number 3497 out of, you know, how many infinite number of cities there are. And, you know, this one's not full yet, so you can certainly live wherever you like that's empty. You know, eat, drink, make merry. You don't have to sleep if you don't want to. You're dead. And he makes all these jokes to just, you know, he knows the people that come here are, you know, scared and don't know what's going on. So he tries very hard. I think his name was like Jacob or something, a very normal name. And he's like, you know, if you need a tour, if you need such and such, you know, here's a list of services and all that. It's basically like your life just keeps going down here. Just try not to wander out onto the swamp plains too much, because the children might get you, and that's no good, and there's nothing we can do about that. And we go, the children? And he goes, yes, the unblessed, unborn children, fetuses, abortions, kids that died in childbirth, they wander the plains of purgatory until they are reborn. But since they were infants when they died, they have no knowledge of good or evil, no self-control, no nothing, and they wander in like packs. And if they descend on any, you know, any sentient, sapient soul, then, you know, it's going to be bad for you. They might try to just dog rush over you and tear you apart. You know, they're basically like animals. They don't know any better. And we go, God, I can't imagine getting my soul torn apart by the soul of unborn children. And, you know, we started calling them gray children because that's what it sounded like. You know, infants wandering around on their bow legs in giant 100-person packs, running over people and tearing them apart. Ugh. But, you know, they're not much different than wolves. It's just that there's so many of them. It's like, okay, well, we'll try to stay within the city limits, or at least within sight of the city. You know, night doesn't fall here very often, so self-preservation, even in death, is up to you. Night doesn't fall but occasionally, and hell, right below us, keeps the place warm, so you won't have to worry about extreme weather. Just use some common sense, and welcome to Purgatory! And he sends us on through, and I was like, wow, this place isn't nearly as bad as I thought it would be. Because it's not hell, it's not. It's where relatively good people can go, or relatively bad people. It's a gray area. It's exactly what it is. And I think Rob did a very good job of interpreting like the center space. And again, your family can go to the church and pay a tithe and you can instantly go to heaven, or you can serve out X amount of time and go to heaven, or you can be reincarnated and try again on earth. So there's plenty of options here for people that weren't like really with the gods or really didn't do anything bad enough to be sent to hell. So as far as like the interpretation of what happens after you die, I think Rob did a really great job. So we go into the city of Purgatory, you know, whatever numbered city it is, and we're like, okay, we've got the obsidian key, we've got to find the lock to the Terrasque cage. Is like, is it just going to be like a padlock we have to take with us back to Earth and like set it somewhere and unlock it, or is it going to be like a wall of like lock holes and we have to pick the right one and that'll unlock the Terrasque cage on Earth? Or we really don't know what we're looking for. So we ask around a lot, and it's basically, again, it's a regular city. It's just everybody's there is dead, and there's not a lot of color going on. Since, dye is not a thing. So whatever clothes you dyed in, that's kind of what you've got. And if you want to change, well, you've got to trade with somebody else, or, before somebody's reincarnated, they have to throw all their clothes off. And, the market is very scarce, considering some of these people died 1,000 years ago and they've got weird clothes, or some of these people don't want to trade clothes at all. So, fashion is a weird thing in this city, and we stopped and stared and looked at how, bare the marketplace is, because they can't produce anything. There's no such thing as farms here. So he's like, what do these people do all day? Do they gamble and have sex and philosophically argue and write books about their lives? I mean, what do you do for the rest of eternity? Or until you decide that you're ready to be reincarnated around here. And sure enough, yeah, there's people playing complicated board games like D&D and chess and Go, and games are a big thing in Purgatory to pass the time. There's people playing cards. They have a vast library of anybody who wants to write a book can, and then they just stick it on the shelf. They don't have a lot of naysayers in terms of bringing new content to their library, because everybody's life was a story. And if you want to learn about somebody, you can just go find their book, on top of history books and whatever books that people died with in their arms or in their backpacks. We noticed that we still got all of our stuff. It's like, if we were carrying a book when we died, it would be with us in Purgatory. So we can add things to what they've got as long as you give it up willingly. So Purgatory is not that bad of a place when you really think about it. So we start asking around and going to the library. It's like, well, there's thousands of years of God knows what in terms of history here. Why don't we go back in history far enough for the people that sealed the Terrasque the first time? Or sealed it in general, not just the first time. But I bet we can find the wizard or the elf or whatever that figured out how to rip its soul out of its body and see the whole ritual. That way we can get more details. And we can find out where the lock is, so we can use the obsidian key and then get out of here. And it's almost like Britain in fall. It's just gray, overcast. You never see the sun. It never really gets super dark because the city is lit up well enough, but it's just it's like it just rained, but all the time. So it's not wonderful, but it's not bad either. You just kind of get used to it. So we go to this library, and it's like the library in the Page Master. It's just floor upon floor, banister after banister, stretching off in all directions. It's like Warehouse 13 down there, or up there, rather. And, it's arranged by subject and author and alphabetized every which way you want to go. There's librarians all over the place that are perfectly content to just sit and read for the rest of eternity, or help others find the knowledge they seek before they're at peace with themselves and can be reincarnated or what have you. So it's easy to find help. When we find a librarian, we ask what we're looking for, and there's not a lot of knowledge, even over the millennia, about Terrasques. But there are a few books. So they send us over to, the monster manuals, and they send us to the letter T, and they send us to, X number of 1,000 years ago when the Terrasque walked the earth among the living. And sure enough, we find the texts, like the scrolls and the maps and the magic circles. We find everything. The elven wizard, I think he was elven, the elven wizard who put this seal in place. They basically lured this Terrasque into a certain location, and then a bunch of wizards just kind of used fireball or whatever and knocked it into this hole. And then they, stadiums and stadiums of people came trying to hold it in this hole long enough to put the seal on it and then rip its soul out of its body. And it took a lot of people to do this. working in conjunction. It's like never before had there been such a magical allegiance of so many people working together. But the guy that did all the math and stuff wrote everything down, thank goodness. And the book might not exist on Earth anymore just from sheer age, but it does exist in Purgatory because books don't grow old and turn to dust like people do in Purgatory. Or rather, they don't like they do on Earth, so the book doesn't grow old and turn to dust in Purgatory because nothing does. So we kind of paw through it and try to get a better understanding of this place. It's like it took men and dwarves and elves and halflings, and everybody came together of all walks of life to get rid of this flying Terrasque before it destroyed the world. It's almost like an alien invasion. If aliens invaded the Earth tomorrow, I'd like to think everybody would stand together to with a common enemy to save the world. But this Terrasque was kind of like that. So everybody put aside their old ties. Like, if there's not going to be an Earth anymore, it kind of puts our squabbles into perspective. So they all, laid down their arms, made a plan, and sealed this thing away for good. And we read through all the texts about how they built this castle. They dug this hole. They made this giant, basically iron plate, like a manhole cover or something. And all the wizards that it took to put the plate in place, and all the necromancers it took to rip its fucking soul out, and all the people that sent that soul in a box to heaven. And we get a more thorough historical reference for what actually happened from somebody that was there doing the arcane calculations. So we get a good picture of this thing, and of course it's a giant kaiju dragon monster with huge teeth, and you can see the tiny little stick figures crouched around its feet and claws, and the giant redwood trees that barely come up to its ankles and stuff like that. It's insurmountably huge. And we finally get to the part where they start scattering the pieces, because they, if you make a seal, it has to be breakable. That's just the math. And they say about how they sent, the evilest of men to take the obsidian key to hell and put it in a tiny mausoleum style building, and that they made deals with demons to seal it in, and no one can reach the key without the help of a demon standing on the plane of hell, and how hard that would be. And it was. They sent the lock to Purgatory, and they sealed the body on Earth, and they sent the soul to a cage in heaven. It's like, okay, read more about the lock. That's what we're here for. We already got the key. Where's the lock? And he goes, the lock is in this library. And it just looks like a normal padlock. It could be in just a broom closet somewhere, or hidden on a shelf, or anything like that. It looks like a paperweight. But it's just a big, black padlock covered with runes. It's like you could probably put it on a dinner plate. It's not tiny, but and we go, okay, well, we know what we're looking for, and we've got a picture now. It looks very primitive. It's just covered with magic, and it's made of dark iron ore or something from Mount Doom, or whatever you want to call that. It's a special magic metal. And we go, okay, so we have to find the lock. It's clearly not literally attached to this cage, otherwise it would be on Earth. So we have to find the lock and use the obsidian key, unlock it, then we can leave Purgatory. And we go, it could be anywhere in this building. And we go, well, is there a restricted section? And DM goes, yeah, that's where a lot of forbidden knowledges are kept. Things that are either private or, world-destroying, things that, the scriptures of gods, and things that just aren't for mortal eyes. And we go, oh, okay. So we head over to the restricted section. Sure enough, it's under guard by various things. There's a couple of guys in robes with the hoods up standing there. There's a couple of big stone statues with swords that we can kind of see them breathing. a little bit. They move now and then as we walk past them, kind of casing the place. Like, how are we going to get in? And our none of us really have any magic, so we go, assassin, can you sneak in? How do we do this? It's like, it's not well lit because it's Purgatory, but we could wait until night falls. And they said, well, night only falls now and then, so we could be here a long time. And the DM goes, well, you notice you're not getting hungry and you're not getting tired, so really you could just kind of wait it out until it's nice and dark. And he rolls the D10 and goes, you ask around, and the next nightfall isn't for another 3 or 4 days. So, like the guy said, hell below keeps Purgatory warm, but the sun only goes down in short spurts behind all these gray clouds. I guess so people can enjoy the starry night sky. But it's 3 days from now, so what are you guys going to do? And it's like, he's basically given us downtime in Purgatory. It's like, what are we supposed to do? What do people do in Purgatory all day? It's like our fighter wanders around and goes, well, you can eat, drink, and make merry here, even though they don't have farms. So we wonder where all the food is coming from, but we don't question it. We go, well, we're just going to do what adventurers normally do. We're going to go to a tavern and eat and play games and gamble and make merry, find, I guess there aren't any prostitutes in Purgatory. And he goes, no, not really. And that goes off into like the oldest profession on the earth. Are they at Purgatory? No, probably not. And even if they were, they probably wouldn't be working that sort of job because they're already dead. It's not like they need the money to stay alive. So prostitution is not a thing in Purgatory. So, we rent out the room. We eat with some trepidation because it's like, is the food in Purgatory going to hurt us? No? Okay. And we stay the night there, and we kind of rest, and I try to get used to having only one hand. It's like I try to learn to tie my shoes. I try to learn how to climb small surfaces, how to fight a little more. It's like, can I get like a hook hand or like a knife hand or something? Could I scrounge something together like that? And he goes, yeah, sure. You get like a really small like hook hand. It can hold your body weight. It's screwed onto your arm, and you can use it as an improvised weapon, like a D4 plus your strength or whatever, just so you're not completely helpless with that hand and can ignore the phantom itches for a while. So it's still kind of traumatic, and the assassin takes pity on me and helps me learn to shoot bow and arrow with my new hook hand, and it's not easy. I get like a -4 or a -6 trying to do this with one hand and a hook. There's like, do I need to get like a special bow to make this work because I've only got one hand? And the fighter and the monk are off to one side. We're basically just like horsing around for a while, trying to stay in good spirits, trying to waste time. We've been through a lot lately, and I think the fighter and the monk ended up sleeping together, but that's neither here nor there. So they got a separate room to kind of relieve the stress for a while, and you can just imagine a big, strong guy and a monk with, the abs and the wonderful body. It's almost like the Olympic Village in there. Sex is happening, and a lot of sex is happening. So while the assassin is trying to help me get used to having one hand, they're off having a good time. So we have like the 3 or 4 days of downtime, just kind of recovering from all the crazy shit that's happening, and meditating on what's to come. And night falls in Purgatory. The sun moves quite slowly, and we go back to the library, and the assassin kind of peels off to one side, and the other 3 of us walk by in a group to kind of distract the guards as we go. And our assassin, with the cat burglar gloves, goes up one of the shelves, goes through the archway via the chandelier, doesn't draw attention and makes it inside. She rolls really high. She's got stealth. She's got acrobatics, or not stealth. She's got move silently, acrobatics, all that good stuff. She left her boots behind so she wouldn't make any click-clack sounds on the marble floors. And she finds herself in like the restricted section. And there's a hall of artifacts. And she starts wandering through. It's like the people that have permission are by themselves and are usually carrying light sources so she can go around them. And she very patiently waits for people to leave or to move on to something else, whatever they happen to be doing. She gets into like the Hall of Artifacts, and she finds like all these different things under glass. Some of them are just laying on tables. There's just tons and tons of stuff here, just like the library itself. And she's like, how am I ever going to find this? And there's a ledger, because of course there is, just like the guy taking names at the very front. And she starts flipping through it to find like the Terrasque lock, or whatever we wanted to call it. And sure enough, it's documented, and it's been there for 1,000 years or so, and here's where you can find it, and here's what shelf it's on. So she dashes down. It's a long, long way. She dashes down to find the proper aisle and the proper shelf and the proper cubby hole, and sure enough, there it is. It's jet black. It doesn't shine. It almost looks like it's made of slate or something, but it's dark iron. And she's got the obsidian key and goes, okay, I'm just going to unlock it and leave it there so nobody knows it's missing. Because if it's covered with dust, clearly nobody ever comes to say, oh, this is the Terrace lock, and then put it back, because either A, you don't know what it is, or B, you don't know what it's for. So why mess with it? No one will notice that it's been unlocked and placed back on the shelf in the little cubby hole where it was. So she jams the obsidian key into it and turns the lock, and it clanks open, and all the runes light up really bright and then fade back into normal. And you can almost see like the fairy dust coming off of it, because all these 1,000-year-old seals are coming undone. And the physical cage of the Terrasque is unlocked. The obsidian key, she still has it. She puts the lock like back up on the shelf very carefully, and just like jams the key between her boobs, and then just like goes up the shelves really quickly in case somebody is curious as to what just happened. And she stays on top of the shelving and just kind of looks over either way. A few people walk by kind of curious, but they don't see anything, and they don't see her because she has like a plus 15 in climb and moves silently in acrobatics. So she hops from one shelf to the next unnoticed and sneaks back out again. And we made it without combat, without having to worry about the two giant stone statues and the guys in hoods, and God knows what they were, because they clearly weren't human or anything like that. So our elven assassin comes back unscathed without doing any combat, and we're very happy, because again, if you get into combat with somebody in a realm of the dead, it's not like you can kill them, they just get up again. So it would have caused trouble for us, because we can die. But she comes out unscathed, and she's like, I undid the lock, let's get out of here, let's go. And it's like, well, the gateway is out on the swampy plains. And we go, damn, it's still dark. We could probably make it, by moonlight. We could get out of here and not have to worry about anything, because if it's only dark now and then, clearly the night will last a bit longer. It's like, well, do we go out by night? Do we go now? It's like, well, we don't know what the time difference is going to be. If months and months have gone by on Earth, then that's not going to be good. So we've got to get out of here as soon as we can. The time dilation might not be in our favor. And we're like, yeah, you're right. And it's like, we just have to get past Jacob at the gate, and then we can go. So we stop, we restock what supplies we can here in Purgatory, and we set out of the city, and Jacob stops us at the gate, and he says, where are you going? You gonna go visit one of the other cities in the dead of night? The children will stop you and tear your souls apart. And he goes, and we go, well, we're pretty sure we've got this. Don't worry about us, Jacob. And he goes, okay, if your soul gets rended, you don't go anywhere. You just cease to be. You don't go to hell. You don't go to heaven. You certainly don't come back here. So if the children catch you, that's it. He's not trying to stop us, but he's just giving us fair warning. It is dangerous out there. And we go, thanks for all the information, Jacob. And we kind of give him like a fake, hey, we'll be back later. See ya. And he lets us go. And they start to close the gate because the moon is rising and the sun is gone. So with all these clouds and gray, we can just barely see like the circle of light that represents the moon reflecting off the water every which way we go. And again, just 2 inches of water, but it splashes with every step, so we're not going to be sneaking anywhere. And we set off across the plain, across like the swamp, with the occasional gnarled tree and the shell mausoleums. And Rob goes, as you're walking and splashing about, making your way back to where the gate to Earth is, you start seeing eyes in the darkness, glowing orange eyes. And we go, oh, shit. We probably should have, walked on logs or done something like that, because everywhere we walk, we're splashing and making noise. And it didn't take them long to find us. And we are set upon by these ashy gray, naked infant monsters. It was a really, disturbing thing. Imagine if an infant could walk upright, and then, there's no teeth or anything. It's just blackness in their mouths, and their eyes glow orange, and they're just bald and hairless and, stony ashen gray. And they come after us because we're moving and we're warm and alive. And it's they're waiting to be reincarnated, but they don't know any better, so they just rush for the nearest interesting thing. And the feral instinct would want them to tear us apart because they don't understand what's going on. And I go, how many are there? And he goes, dozens. And, we pull our swords and weapons and hook hands, and it's we can just cut through them. They're just babies. And we go, God, this is really messed up. It's okay, I'm going to pull my club instead of my sword. Does that make a lot of difference? He goes, well, you are in Purgatory, so you probably can't really kill them, but you can only really knock them aside. It's they're amassing around you in a great big, crowd. You'd best start moving or you're going to get overwhelmed. It's the fighter's I charge forward, just kicking them as I go, like kickballs. So this really messed up scene of us dashing through a crowd of dead babies in Purgatory, we're just kicking them aside as we can, swinging our branches is basically what our clubs were. Swinging the branches back and forth, trying to get through the crowd before they overwhelm us. One ends up on our monk's back. Get it off. And it's clawing at her neck, clawing at her back. And she throws it off into the crowd, and it bounces off of one of the other ones. And two of them jump and grab onto my arms, and I have to swing them together in this really bizarre comedic thing and throw them off to one side. It's this is the most fucked up thing I've seen. Ah! And the fighter is stampeding through them, trying to make a path for us as we double time it through this crowd. And if you can imagine, how we're wired to be upset when we hear a baby crying. Imagine 200 babies crying all at once, chasing after you with glowing orange eyes and ashy skin. It was horrifying. So we ran past trees and mausoleums and all the, jumped over logs and splashed as fast as we could to get back to the gate to Earth. It's could they follow us out? How are we going to close it? We still got the keyhole on the other side. Assassin, you have to go first. And of course she's the quickest because she's the assassin. And she runs out ahead of the fighter just as we're breaching the crowd, and we can see the gate far ahead of us. It's I moved double time. And I think if you run, you run in D&D. It's like 5 times your speed or whatever. But she dashes out ahead of us and ahead of the crowd of the children, if you will. And she explodes out of the gate back into like the root cellar that we were in, and we are surrounded. All of us pile out of this portal, and we are surrounded by Yuan-ti that are just waiting for us. And the Yuan-ti abomination captain, the guy that sentenced us to be tortured and to be sent out to the tents, is standing there just grinning ear to ear with all his fangs, with his arms folded. It's like, did you think you could get away from us? You know, you foolishly left this portal open, so we knew you'd be coming back. You know, take them prisoner again. Send the women back out to the tents with 10, 50-pound weights on their arms and legs, and send the men to the gallows. I don't even want to mess with them anymore. And, they get ready to take us until a giant wave of Purgatory babies come flying out of the freaking portal and just gang rush over the entire room. And into the Yuan-ti. They are instantly surrounded, and the room is packed with flailing, screaming claws and fangs, and they're swinging swords, but they don't die because they're already dead. They're pouring out of this other dimension. It's pandelirium in this room, and we lose each other instantly. Like, the fighter is rushed into a corner, and our assassin runs and jumps up on the kegs and stuff that are in this room as they just pour out. It's nightmarish. And the the monk is jumping on people's shoulders and trying to not get lost in this avalanche of Purgatory children as they overrun the Yuan-ti and just start tearing them limb from limb. Again, they're like dogs. They're like wolves. They're feral beasts that just tear apart anything that moves. And we go, we've got to fucking get out of here. It's should we close the portal? If you want to charge into that madness and try and close it, you certainly can, but good luck getting out. So we gang rush it for the stairs, and we slam the door and we bolt it, and we push crates and shit in front of it, and we leave the Yuan-ti and the Yuan-ti commander to their fate with the gate to Purgatory open. It's this was a bad idea from start to finish, but we unlocked the lock. We've got to run for it. And so long as this fort is full of Yuan-ti, I'm sure they'll figure something out. We've got to just run. So we run up the stairs, and we get up onto one of the roofs. We basically just keep taking stairs until we're as high as we can go. And our assassin has her grappling hook, and we grapple from building to building, and we grapple to the wall, and we climb up the wall, just not even caring at this point, because it's pitch dark. It's in the middle of the night. But we book it as fast as we can to get out of this place. And the Yuan-ti see us, and they start shooting arrows. And, of course, I take an arrow in the back and fall. And the monk has to turn and pick me up, and we dash into the foliage so we can get away. And it's they're going to send, scouting groups after us. We've got to find, a cave or a deep creek or something to hide in, because we broke in, they know about us, and they just saw us break out. So the captain and his regular guards are dealing with the Purgatory children. The rest are probably going to take it upon themselves to chase us. So we are set upon and hunted like animals all through this forest. We're running. I've got an arrow sticking out of my back. I'm missing a hand. The fighter stops when he can to just belt one of them across the face with his club. And, anytime we stop, it's like we're going to get overrun almost immediately. So we jump into a deep creek. We're splashing past all these rivers, or all these pools of water. We're throwing down, slate avalanches behind us to try and put some distance between us and them. But they hound us, and they hound us, and they hound us well into the night, just chasing us with freaking bloodhounds and bows and arrows and freaking crossbows and any magic that they've got that they can throw at us. There's fires starting up in the forest because we freaking got away. And they don't realize what sort of horribleness is going on back in their fort, But eventually, through all series of exhaustion, we outrun them just on foot. We were just torn up, exhausted. Our gear was damaged. We dropped things behind us so we could run faster. We're crusted with blood and grime. We've got, leaves like falling out of our hair and twigs and junk. We look pathetic, and we collapse in this little embankment to just kind of rest and like press up against each other and try to just not be seen until morning, and we rest there. And the DM goes, well, you don't have your bedrolls and you don't have, your gear laid out or anything, so you don't really get any good rest, but you do sleep. So you recover X amount of HP and blah, blah, blah. And the Wanti, and he rolls the fate check. The Wanti don't find you, so it looks like you got away. And we go, oh, thank God. That was the worst. That was the worst thing ever. And we look at each other and we go, well, now what? And we go, well, we've got to get back to the hidden caves with the dwarves, and we've got to get like all of our gear seen too, and we've got to report in that we've unlocked the lock, and we're ready to start freeing the beast to fight the Ouroboros. And just as we're saying this, there's an earthquake, and we go, yep, the Ouroboros is still stirring. But like anybody whose alarm clock just went off is not yet ready to get out of bed just yet. So we are running out of time because there have been earthquakes since this all started, but they're growing more and more frequent, almost like contractions when you're giving birth. When they start coming like back to back, it's going to start sucking to be us. So we get up in the morning, we splash water on our faces, we eat rations as we walk. We're doing our absolute best to not just fall on our faces. We've got to get back to the mountains, back to whence we came. And it took us, I think it was like 3 to 5 days to come down from the mountains to this fort by the volcano. So it took us like a week to go up while we were exhausted and trailing. And just trailing. Our wagons were dragging, basically, as we were getting back. But we eventually make it unchecked by the Wanti. They lost us in the Great Wood, and we start going up the mountain, and we find the secret place, and we do the secret knock, and we just kind of collapse into this hidden room with the dwarves. And there are enough tunnels that lead down into the dwarven cities and stuff that we are relatively safe now. And we report in to the dwarves and the ex-paladins. We've unlocked the lock. We went to Purgatory. The Wanti are going to have something a lot worse to deal with soon. Here, take the obsidian key. We don't want it anymore. It's caused us nothing but misery. And we get a big meal. We get baths. We get... all of our gear gets taken so it can be repaired and seen to. We get some serious, we asked to be drugged, basically. Drug us so we can sleep for the next 12 hours, because that amount of misery over that amount of space is really bad for you. So we all get separate beds. We all get, food, baths, sleep to recover ourselves. And I go to the nearest healer so that they can check my stub hand. They get me a proper screw-on, nub cap, and he's like, here's all the things you can put on your nub. You can get, a hook, or a spike, or a dinner fork. You can do all these different things. So I get, a little kit of things I can do with my nub. So, I stay with the hook. It's not a sharp hook, but it's the most useful thing. I could make it a spike, but then it would be dangerous all the time. So it's well, if I get ready to get into a fight, I'll replace it with a knife or a small spike or whatever it happens to be. But our fighter gets all of his armor seen to. Our monk I think she said she went and got oiled and like stretched out and had like her body seen too, because she doesn't have weapons or a ton of armor or anything. She just had like an extra gi to throw on after her last one got torn up. But she basically went and got like massage and sunstone therapy and all that kind of stuff so that she would be back to 100%. And our assassin again like replaced all of her arrows, and we did all the upkeep, all the maintenance stuff, and we finally look at each other and we go, we should probably check on Amanda, and see how she's doing, because we were gone for, let's see, 5 days to get there, a day in captivity, or no, 3 days to get there, a day in captivity, however much time we spent in Purgatory, we don't know, and then 5 days to get back. It's been close to 2 weeks, hasn't it? And we should go and check on her. And we go to like the healers area, where people that are really suffering are. And we find Amanda like in a soft bed. She's got bandages around her head. She's laying out. She's got a nurse like next to her reading. They're keeping a very close eye on her. They're making sure she eats and see into her bedpans and all that good stuff. She's getting the best treatment because she went to hell and back. But there is something that we notice as soon as we go in, is that she's got a baby bump. And we go, oh dear. And we go, nurse, what's this about? And she goes, yes, it's been 2 weeks since she arrived back from hell, and it seems she's pregnant with the demon's seed. And we go, oh God. And we go, Rob. And he goes, what? He goes, Rob, you're being weird. And he goes, there's reasoning for it. And we go, yeah, we know. But it's been 2 weeks, and she's already showing, really. And he goes, well, time passes differently. If 5 minutes is 5 days in hell, then how far along is she, in hell time, versus how long it takes a demon to gestate in a woman's body, versus being a half-breed, versus all this other different thing. It's like, don't tell me the math about how a half-demon baby's pregnancy works. And so yeah, she's going to give birth to a half-demon baby. It's like, is she still like comatose, or has she come back to us yet or anything? He's like, she's back, but she's still got like PTSD. She's very quiet, very unsure in her movements. She's always got the hand over her belly and stuff like that. She could give birth within the next week. We don't really know. And we go, wow, this just isn't going to stop, is it? It's just going to keep going. And he goes, well, it's the end of the world, and not everybody's feeling fine. And we go, shut up. Shut up. So leaving poor Amanda, pregnant as can be with the demon seed, we go back to find the Council of Dwarves and the ex-paladins, again, like around the round table, and we tell them everything that's happened. We got the obsidian key, and we took it all the way into the Wanti fortress, and we got captured, and then we broke out, and then we went all the way to Purgatory and back, so the lock is undone, and we're ready for the next bit. It's like, we need to free the body next. And we go, free the body? We saw pictures of this thing. There's no physical location that can hold it with any amount of effectiveness. Is like, all we have to do is go get the soul and it'll break out. And we go, well, maybe not especially. It's like, if it's got this big metal plate over it, we need to gather enough magic users to either move it or put cracks in it or whatever you like. It's like, okay, drop alchemist fire on it, do something, throw some powder kegs down there. We can't really go all the way down into this chasm and like start poking it to try and wake it up. The next leg of this journey is going to have to be on you guys. We have to figure out how we're going to get into heaven. And we it's like we've hit a rut in the road, because it's been implied to us this whole time that the Terrasque is buried under a castle, under a big plate of iron. And we go, we can't move a castle. How are we going to do this? And the dwarves go, well, you saw all the plans in that book you told us about. Did you see anything? And our assassin kind of reaches like into hammer space behind herself and goes, I took the book. I go, you took the book? He's like, yeah, I stole a book from Purgatory. And we're rolling our eyes and just like, of course you did, you little bastard. So she flips it open to the page that has like the physical cage on it. And yes, the castle is of the flying Terrasque cage is sitting on a metal plate, and under the metal plate is the body itself. And we read through all the facts and figures and stuff, and we find out that the only way to really move the plate is to move the castle also. And the castle is set to fly. It was a flying castle before they put it on top of this seal. And we go, a flying castle? How do we manage that? Does it have like a cockpit? How are we? Yeah. And he goes, yeah, it basically has like a crystal ballroom, and you can stand there and put your hand on it and move the castle to your will. You just need a high enough use magic device score. And we go, oh my god. And we look at each other like, wow, none of us have use magic device. At least not any of us with any serious ranks in it. So we'll have to escort some poor bastard into this castle, which is abandoned. It's basically a ruin. And who's going to bet that the Yuan Ti have set up shop there as well? So we've got to figure out a way to break in, get to this crystal ballroom, hope the crystal ball is still there, and fly the castle away. It's like this is getting more and more outrageous as we go. But we have to take like the manhole cover off of this thing so the Terrasque knows that it can leave once we once we wake it up and bring its soul back from heaven. And we go, do we have any leads on how we're going to get into heaven? And he goes, no, not really, but you've got to unseal the hole first. And by then, hopefully, we'll have some idea about how we're going to do this. You go, yeah, of course we are. So I was like, okay, well, we need to find like a wizard, a really powerful wizard. And sure enough, in the Dwarven City, there are several. And we try and find the one who's like most used to enchanted items, has a greater arcane knowledge than the others. And of course we find one. He's a scholar who knows quite a bit about using strange and ancient magical items. And we go, here's what we're doing. You're in the army now. Come with us. And he tries to like say no, that he's not in for this fight. It's like, the world is coming to an end. You're drafted. Come with us. He's very cowardly. He's not used to going out on such serious adventures or anything. And we basically dragged him by his feet out of his college corner of a library of a house that he lived in. And you're in the army now, buddy. Come on. We're saving the world, asshole. Let's go. Then we go, okay, we've got to get to this castle, probably fight our way through it, because the Yuan Ti know what it is and what's beneath it by now, surely. And find this control room and move the damn castle. So just try and take that into account as we're crossing the landscape again with a helpless NPC in tow, again hiding and traveling at night as best we can. And of course, we run into like Yuan Ti highwaymen, and we have to fight them. And we run into Yuan Ti guards here and there. It's like we're getting sick of Yuan Ti at this point. We're like, we can't even use the roads because it's like we're the monsters now. History has flipped on its head to where the Yuan Ti are the rightful owners of this land, and the evil humans are running from cave to embankment to sets of bushes to not be seen. Make sure you shoot to kill. and all that stuff. So we travel across the way, well into the kingdom. And again, this place is just a ruin, so it's not like a huge giant fortress like the one we just broke into. But sure enough, we come over the crest of the hill on the edge of the forest to where this place is supposed to be. And there's a big clearing that's a perfect circle because under the soil is an iron plate, so not a lot of plant life here. And sure enough, it's got Yuan Ti running around. This has become like an army encampment. There's tents, and again, the blacksmith is setting up, banging on different weapons and stuff. They're occupying this location as well. The Yuan Ti are not stupid. They know their lore and their arcane might as much as we do, and they've been waiting Lord knows how many centuries for the world to turn in their favor, for the Ouroboros to eat the world and poop out a better one for the Yuan Ti. So they are king of the hill right now, and it's a war of attrition for us to get into this place. And we look over this hill and it's like, it's just like the fort. They're defending this location. We're going to have to sneak in or just like start picking guys off with our assassin and like guerrilla fight this place or blitzkrieg it into the ground because there's way too many people here for us to just try and take the place. And we've got a helpless NPC, a wizard that isn't so much into fireballs. He's more into exotic magic items and like prestidigitation and detect magic and stuff like that. It's like, how are we going to get through this? So we need a plan. And that is where we stopped for that particular session. It was like Rob wanted us to like confer amongst each other between games rather than just sit at the table and try and figure out what to do. It's like, just over the next week or two between games, just figure out how you're going to approach this. It's like you can walk circuits around the place and kind of get a feel for how it's laid out. He gave us like a map and showed us where all the tents were and showed us, where the blacksmith was and where all the different locations that were concentrated with Yuan Ti, where he's like, okay, here's what you see. We'll be back in 2 weeks, so you can figure out amongst yourselves how to get in there and get to the room that you want. So, ready, set, go. And that is where we left off on that session. So, I guess that is where I will leave off for today. So, I hope you enjoyed that session, and I hope you enjoyed this story. So, I'll see you guys on the next D&D Stories. Keep gaming. Hey guys, thanks for watching. Be sure to hit that like button for me. If you want to keep up with channel updates, check me out on Facebook. And if you're feeling especially generous, be sure to visit my Patreon. Keep gaming!